Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Duckville here, bringing you some StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm action. We're on Star Station, one of the very pretty looking maps here in the current map pool. Recently changed, of course, so that it is cross-only positions. We'll see how these two players will react to that and adapt and do all the cool things that we love to see players do. Starting up at the top right-hand side, as our Red Zerg player, he was picked up by Qntc Gaming a little while ago, and was a really interesting story for how he sort of made his name, as it were, in the StarCraft 2 universe. I am speaking, of course, of Qntc Gaming's MaSSaN. He was a player known as the Homeless Zerg. Unfortunately, for a time, had no place to stay apart from his friend's couch, according to the blog post about this whole story. But then made his name at the MLG Summer Championship, where he took out some notable players, took out Daisuke, took out Cold Rise. Also, of course, the big scalp that MaSSaN claimed was Suppy. Took out Suppy in what everyone was considering a very one-sided game, and was able to destroy Suppy. From what I remember, his Zerg vs Zerg just looked a lot more sort of clean and sort of polished at the time, and MaSSaN was able to take a really, really strong victory there. Gave himself a little bit of a name there, and I don't think that was before he was acquired by Qntc. Of course, this is a little bit more of a newer sort of thing, but yeah, he did a really good job there, and is now part of the Qntc team. His opponent down at the bottom left-hand side as our blue player, our blue Protoss, who's currently playing for the SCA team. It is Lucky. Of course, SCA has quite a few really decent players. They've got Cold Scars and Lucky and Jon Snow. Also, they got Virium as well. A couple of players who I've had the pleasure of casting here on the channel as well. Make sure you check out those games if you haven't already. But we will see a double gas before Cyber opening here from Lucky. Pretty standard sort of thing. In the days gone by of Wings of Liberty, this would have been considered a little bit more of a, oh, he's about to cheese kind of build, but that was, of course, considering if you weren't Naniwa or Sase. I completely forgot his name for a moment there. That was if you weren't considering, you know, Sase or Naniwa. But, you know, these days, very standard sort of way to open up for a Protoss player. Need to get a little bit of gas out. Why? You need either a Stalker or a Sentry at the start. Really helps out with your initial expansion down to the natural here. As you can see, it looks like Lucky is going to go for that very soon. You also need some gas for that Warp Gate tech, as everyone loves a bit of warping in. Don't really see too many people using just the standard sort of gateways anymore, but I tell you what, I played a 4v4 the other day, and the guy didn't research Warp Gate, and I was like, what exactly is going on right here? Anyway, you also need the gas for that mothership core, so there's quite a spike of gas right at the start for Protoss players when it comes to, you know, how much do I need, and that's for these first sort of 3 units that pop out, well, first the first 2 units, and then the tech that comes along with it, and then it just sort of goes back to a normal sort of requirement for gas, as it were, because you need to get your natural up, you need to possibly get another Stalker, maybe another Sentry out, depending on how you play. And, of course, we'll see how Lucky's going to play it out. MaSSaN is now aware that there is that natural expand going down. He's going to keep an eye on what other buildings get placed down here at the natural. He wants to know, is there going to be a forge? Are there going to be a couple of gates? Is there going to be any pressure? These kinds of things, because it's always important to know if you need to build those lings right at the start, or perhaps even a roach warren, something like that. The first Stalker has made its way out for Lucky, and he's going to try and poke along at some of these units that are down here at the natural. MaSSaN acting, he has done quite nicely here upon seeing that his opponent did not go for the sort of the normal sort of expand. He's just being very careful here. We can see that he's now getting his 2 gases up inside the main base. Wants to get some either the presence of some roaches, or get that that speed started up for those lings before he can look to take a 3rd base. So he's not necessarily going to be able to move out to take a 3rd base as you would normally expect at this point for a Zerg player, just because these early Stalkers, the possible threat of extra gateway attacks now coming out, is something that you cannot deal with if you go for a very fast 3rd base, especially on a map such as Star Station, where the 3rd base is very, very exposed. They can come in from any sorts of angles across the side there. If you wanted to take an expansion over here as well, there is, you know, just sort of more attack paths that can come in from the 2 sides there. So you have to be very careful when it comes to expanding to a 3rd as a Zerg player when you didn't open up with a little bit of gas. So Just being very careful here as MaSSaN. He is going to transition up to the lair tech. His Roach Warren is done. We've got a couple of Roaches now about to pop out as well. A few Queens going to get started on their creep spread as well. And once he gets that rolling, he will be a lot safer. And we can expect him to most likely take this base over here. It's a little bit closer. Your reinforcements don't have to travel as far when it comes to defending this base. You can pop out of the main base there, come down from the natural as well, and have a nice little defensive presence here at the third as needed. So we'll probably see him take that base. Meanwhile, back at home for Lucky, a couple of sentries have popped down. We can also see that a Stargate has also finished up with the first of perhaps a few Phoenix also on the way. So it looks if Lucky is just going to move us across to a standard sort of mid game here between these two players. Interesting to see that there's no Forge at all just yet. So not favouring to get any upgrades just yet is our Protoss player, but Lucky has scouted out that the third base is being taken across to the side. Interesting decision there from MaSSaN. I'm not necessarily saying it's wrong, it's just I haven't actually seen too many people go for that base instead of the base across to the side. But then again, as I'm sure some of you will know, MaSSaN doesn't always like to play standard. He can bring out some crazy sorts of strategies every now and then, but you know, we'll see how he's going to adapt that from here. He does now know that he is going to need to deal with some Sky units very soon. In fact, only just the one Phoenix has popped out for Lucky. He's not going to be going for those Void, the sort of the larger amount of Phoenix, which we do see from time to time. He's just going to get the one, cause a little bit of harassment across the map on these Overlords here. They're not going to be happy about that at all. And after that, just going to switch across the Void Rays, a very common sort of mass unit that we have been seeing in Heart of the Swarm these days. Given the power of the Void Rays with their prismatic alignment, they do a lot of damage when that's all activated, especially against those armored units. And you know, they can give you a really nice strength behind the sort of mainstay gateway forces that you normally have as Protoss. You normally see a lot of sentries, a lot of zealots out, sort of not as many sort of stalkers out in this kind of matchup. You normally see the stalkers more in PvP, of course, as many of you will know. But with the sentries out, you got a lot of force fields you can utilize. You can zone out Hydralisks, and then you can get those Void Rays to go to work against things like the Roaches and the Hydras. As you can see here, MaSSaN is now moving in towards that kind of tech. So he is getting some upgrades back at home. We've got the muscular augments on the way, along with +1 to the armor for those Hydras and Roaches. The infestation pit also on the way, along with a second Hydralisk den. I was actually talking about this on Twitter the other night. I wish someone would bring back the old double Hydra Den build from Brood War. I'm not even joking, guys. There was a build. It was a build in. I'm pretty sure it was Zerg versus Protoss in Brood War, where you would get a double Hydra Den and research the speed and the groove spines as quickly as you can, and then you do like this sort of I believe it was a 3-base attack with Hydras, and it hurt quite a lot if it went undetected. But looks as if MaSSaN, whether intentionally or not, is going to bring that one out for us here today. We've got some Hydras now making their way across to the third base, just trying to get rid of these Void Rays. You don't want these guys hanging out near your drone line, so the Hydra's going to have to split up a little bit. I think we might see MaSSaN maybe move a couple back to his natural base, because the Void Rays are slowly making their way across. There are only 3, so it's not exactly a massive presence here, but what we may see from Lucky is him trying to snipe off either a couple of buildings, maybe a hatchery, and then recall back out. This is a very common drive-by tactic that a lot of Protoss players have started to use these days, where you just sort of run in, quickly snipe down a building like a third base or possibly a lair or something like that, and then use that mothership core to recall yourself out and not take too much damage. But MaSSaN, very aware, wow, nicely done by him, snipes down the mothership core, then a Void Ray, and that threat is basically over right now because the Spore Crawlers are about to go down, and so he has handled that very nicely. I'm rather impressed with that. Looks like Lucky is just trying to find any sort of open point, but with the Spore Crawlers ready to defend this position here, he is not going to find any holes in the armor of MaSSaN. So back at home for Lucky, we're going to move across to a couple more Stargates here. We've actually got a total of 3 and now out on the map. Twilight Council on the way, Gateway, another Gateway going down, the +1 to weapons just finishing up now for our Protoss player, and it looks as if he is going to go into a very large Void Ray count here at some stage. So MaSSaN is going to need to deal with those prismatic beams of death. Looks like he's got his own Hydras making their way across the map. Just the +1 to the carapace ready for these guys. So they're not exactly going to be the best fighting force right now. And we'll see how Lucky deals with this, because a small force of Roach and Hydra can do a little bit of damage. But I mean, when you've got this many Void Rays out, you've got a lot of force fields available. It's not going to do the best kind of damage here. So MaSSaN getting caught out there. Some of the Roaches getting picked apart by those Void Rays. And it looks as if the Hydras now gathering in a large force here. 1-1 on their weapons is now done. 4 swarm hosts are now being built as well. So MaSSaN is going to look towards a very much a siege style tactic here. Utilizing swarm hosts, you can throw them down in some sort of position, like maybe over here somewhere, maybe across to this side as well, and just slowly send them in. Send those locusts through, and eventually they'll start knocking down Protoss units and buildings very quickly. So we'll see what our Zerg player is going to do. He doesn't have speed, keep in mind. That is only just researching now. I'm not sure if he just noticed that or not, but that is researching right now, about a third of the way done. And a Nidus Worm has also been created by MaSSaN. So he's going to utilize the quick transit of this Nidus network. We'll probably see that come out somewhere around here, or maybe a little bit further up as a safety sort of position. But he's going to not want to deal with the fact that there is a long distance between the two bases. As we can see here, you've got to travel a long way. And those swarm hosts aren't exactly the quickest of units. They're very slow, so he is going to take advantage of that. Looks like some Zealots going to warp in here at the proxy pylon that Lucky had set up. The Zealots not necessarily going to do a massive amount of damage, but what they will have to deal with very soon is a couple of spine crawlers that are just building here at the third base. But we can hear that ominous sound down here at the Nidus Worm. MaSSaN has picked up those swarm hosts, chucked them out right here, and we'll see how much damage they can get done. It looks like the Zealots are actually going to get a little bit of damage done, blocking off that attempted 5th base of MaSSaN for the time being. Swarm host now burrowing, the Locust now on the way. We'll see what these little guys are able to do. Of course, not so little when they've got their +2 to armor and their +1 to weapons. Gonna take out a pylon. That's probably about it. Maybe a Zealot or 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There you go. So we'll see what Lucky is going to do here. It looks like he may be able to take this out pretty easily. A couple of force fields going down at the back. A nice wall to block out some of those swarm hosts. And he's going to be able to clean this attack up very, very easily. Gets rid of the Nidus Worm as well. There are so many Void Rays up in the sky right now. That is incredible how many he has got. Of course, Lucky does now have... He's got his 3 bases and looking to take a 4th. He's got 80 probes out on the map right now. He is looking very, very comfortable. Meanwhile, our Zerg player, MaSSaN, is down at 63 drones. Not exactly a large amount, and he may get stuck at this kind of number because soon he's probably just going to get stuck on making units. This is a very common sort of trap that Zerg players do fall into. We can now see that the sentries are trying to zone out those Hydralisks as best as they can, throwing out some hallucinated Zealots. Very clever there from Lucky. Going to be taking some of those Hydralisks, and it looks like the Hydras will force some of the units back for the time being. But I mean, these guys need some upgrades. We need to see plus, you know, 3-3 on the way would be very, very nice here for MaSSaN. We've got some swarm hosts. I don't want to go into battle, he says. Runs away very quickly, trying to burrow as quick as he can. We've got a decent total of swarm hosts out. There's 11 at the moment. They're slowly making their way across the map, just trying to get in position here to assault this third base. But I mean, Lucky, look at all those Void Rays. 18 Void Rays are now out for the Protoss play. He doesn't have the best of upgrades right now, just +1 on the attack for these air units, but I mean, that is certainly going to start factoring in very soon. We can see the Templar also out on the map. Storm has been researched. A couple of good storms here from Lucky are very much needed. The Hydras are doing a lot of damage, but I mean, wow, are you serious? The Void Rays, pretty good unit. And Lucky has cleaned up a lot of those Hydras, and I think this is where those upgrades are really going to start to factor in. The extra Nexus down at the 4th base has been spotted. The Hydra's going to go to work on that as quickly as they can. The Void Rays, however, are going to keep a tab on all of these Locusts that are popping out from those Swarm hosts. So, Lucky is going to hold back for now. He's waiting for some of the energy to come back together here from these Templar, and once he's got those guys, he's going to be able to shred up all of those Hydralisks if they stay in a big group, and it looks like they are going to stick there for the moment. Lucky trying to fend off these Locusts so they don't do too much damage, and now he's going to go on the offensive. Swarm host quickly trying to retreat here for MaSSaN. He needs to get some of those Locusts out on the ground to stop those Templar, but it is too late. Storm's going down all over the joint there, and wow, tearing apart so many of those Hydras, and Lucky is now in a very strong position right now. 182 supply for the Protoss player up against the 116 of MaSSaN. MaSSaN, I kind of think it's just a little bit of mispositioning there, recognizing that his opponent was going into a heavy Void Ray count. I mean, obviously, you do need to get a lot of Hydras out, you do need to get upgrades though as well, and this +2 seems just a very, very far behind at this point. I mean, he's been struggling a little bit for minerals at certain points of this match right now. We can see that his worker count is still down at 61. He's trying to take a 5th and a 6th base across through the top left-hand side of the map, but Lucky has now been able to secure his own 4th base across at the center left position. I mean, once these cannons are up, that's going to make this base much harder to take down, regardless of how many swarm hosts or hydras you have out. So Lucky in a very strong position right here. He's now got 22 Void Rays out on the map right now. We've got those 3 Templar. The Mothership Core has been reconstituted right now. She is just warped in. Gonna add in that extra little bit of the recall or the time warp as well, which can help out with dealing with those Hydras. But I mean, MaSSaN needs to be extremely careful with his unit positioning from now on. These guys here need to be very careful about the approach of these Void Rays, and I mean, they are coming right now, and I don't even know if they're going to get another shot out right now. Yeah, they get popped straight away. Hydras, however, are going to go to town on the Void Rays, taking down Void Rays left, right, and center. But I mean, the storms, the Void Ray damage from the +2 on the weapons, it is just too much. And, well, our Observer did go down, so Lucky's not going to be able to spot these swarm hosts here, but they will hatch some eggs. But not for too long, I don't think. Yeah, they go down very quickly. But I mean, behind all of this, MaSSaN trying to get his economy back up into a little bit of a fighting shape. Up to 65 workers at this point. His main base is mined out. His natural base is also mined out. And our upgrades. Let's just have a quick look at these. We've got +2 to weapons on the ground for the Protoss player. So he's certainly got a lot of potential on the ground and even off the ground with +2 to the air weapons now done. And I think these swarmers have had their last days, popping very quickly once that Observer came across to take them out. And Lucky continues to take advantage of his position here. We can see that that 5th base is now going to go up. Some probes arriving to lay down some mineral mining here. And MaSSaN is surely knowing that he is in a very troublesome spot right now. And you got to be asking the question, what do you do when you've got to deal with all of those Void Rays? I mean, they're a very threatening force when they maneuver themselves around into the correct positions. Obviously, we can see MaSSaN able to take advantage of the fact that these Hydras very quick when they've got some creep spread around, but the Void Rays now chasing after them. They're going to try and burn them down as quickly as possible. But, I mean, MaSSaN, what has he got from here? I mean, we've got Hydras, they've got 2-2, but there's no 3-3. We don't see any Vipers, we don't see any sort of Infestors as well. I would love to see some Infestors out on the field. A couple of good Fungals here may actually change the fate of this game, but MaSSaN comes through his Hydras, dodging left, right, and center. The storms are all over the place, though. Those 3 Templar that Lucky has had the entire game have basically just won him the game right here. A Colossus comes to the battle and says, hey guys, I've got a laser too, but MaSSaN has already been burnt apart by the bounding after them as quickly as they can with that metabolic boost. SCA Lucky, he isn't going to be able to get them. Yeah, he does back off. So hope you all enjoyed the match there, but we can see that we are going to get some drop play coming out of I Love MKP, the very famous flavor of the month, the